I'm just gonna come right out and say it. Garden State might be a Valentine's movie.
You don't want to welcome everybody?
Oh, sure. Welcome, I guess.
Okay, well, this is Reviewable with Mike and Braden, and this week we watched Garden State and Memoir of a Snail.
Yeah.
So, Garden State is about. I need to look up the cast.
Yeah. Zach Braff plays Andrew Largeman.
Largeman!
And Andrew Largeman is a struggling actor in Hollywood, LA Angeles. And he gets a call from his dad who informs him that his mom has just died. And so he needs to come back to New Jersey for the funeral. And Andrew Largeman is numb to the world. And in fact, the very first scene of this movie is the plane experiencing serious turbulence, and everyone is like in hysterics basically because they think they're gonna die, and he's just sitting there with like a blank face staring ahead. And then at one point, like, there's this woman that's like gripping him super tightly because she's really terrified, and he just like reaches up and tries to turn on the air on the airplane. So this is Andrew Largeman. He's sort of like a zombo, right?
Yeah.
And him, like, this movie is really about him going back and addressing some of his trauma,
Definitely some of his trauma.
some of his his ways of life. And
Mm-hmm.
he meets somebody in the form of Natalie Portman, and that's where the rom element comes in. But it's really more of a finding yourself movie than I would call it more of a finding yourself movie than a
Rom-com.
rom-com per se.
Yeah, I definitely would not categorize this as a rom-com,
Yeah.
I think.
So I think we agree with our brother-in-law. For those of you that were here last week, you know what we're referencing.
Yeah, are you ready to rate it?
Oh. Um well, okay, let's talk about what we liked about it. Okay. I think it has moments where I really liked it.
Yeah.
And actually, wait, I wrote notes about this. I haven't been writing notes about movies for a little bit. I need to get back on that, that grind.
Oh, you know who's in this movie?
Hmm.
Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah. He's
He's Andrew's dad,
yeah.
Mr. Largeman, if you will.
Yeah, it took me like that you know him from somewhere. And then he does this like glare at one point, and I was like, what is he from? I have to know. I've seen that glare before. And it's when Bilbo is like lusting after the ring, or he's glaring at Gandalf for, accusing him of being a little hobbit bitch that doesn't want to give up the ring. So it's Bilbo Baggins, but he's really good. Everybody's really good in this movie.
Yeah.
Apparently Zach Braff wrote and directed it as well, which is cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
I wonder if it was personal to him in some way. I imagine it was. But yeah, he does a good job. Natalie Portman does a really good job. But yeah, like Natalie Portman, everybody always kind of raves about, and then I feel like 9 times out of 10 that I see her in a movie, I'm like, I don't know. Not a huge fan.
I think she did a really good job.
She
in this
did a
movie.
great job, and I think that maybe my perception is wrong, completely wrong, and I need to just sack up and watch some more Natalie
Probably
Portman
because.
movies.
Do you think it's because people just rave about her that it is a turnoff for you? That you almost want to prove them wrong, and so you have a
No, it's not even
different
necessarily
opinion.
that. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's a weird one.
Hmm.
But for some reason, I perceive her as being overrated. At least in this movie, she's really good. Zach Braff is good too. It's got some really funny parts. It's got some parts where it uses music in a way that I really like, and I'll talk about one of those in spoiler section. I liked the use of Coldplay at the beginning of the movie. Do you remember?
No.
What was the song that they played? Don't Panic. That's it. Yeah. Okay. So there's some good musical choices in here. I think that this movie sort of leans towards
Hmm.
the hipster music vibe, and sometimes it does it in kind of an obnoxious way. Like it leans a little bit too far into the hipster territory. But other times, I think I was digging it and I liked it. Um, there are a lot of scenes that are very slow and just not super interesting. What did you think?
I think so.
Like the, for an example, the first time that he goes over to Natalie Portman's house and they're burying the gerbil or the hamster or whatever it is, I was like, up to that point, it first of all, it takes like 5 minutes or more, 5 to 10 minutes, from him crossing the threshold into her house to them burying
Oh, it's more than that.
this little weasel in the back of in their little weasel graveyard, and that was dragging. And then they get to this little funeral that's supposed to be poignant for the gerbil, and I was like, I don't give a fuck about this scene anymore. Let's just move on. I need a change of scenery. I think it takes its time a little bit too much for me with some of these scenes without having anything really that interesting to say.
Or memorable, I guess, because I don't even remember what they talked about at the funeral.
Right. And
But I
then,
do remember what they talked about in her room. That was an interesting thing.
yeah, I didn't really love that either. Like that's what I mean about it being hipster. Like it's very quirky
Yeah,
and not in always a good way.
yeah.
Like I didn't find her little like no one's ever done this thing before and
In
then she
this
does
exact,
it.
yeah.
I didn't find that endearing. I just
Feels kind of pick me.
yeah, I found it annoying.
Yeah.
I was just like, let's move on from this. So they're in they're in the house, they're in the living room, and I'm like, let's move on from this. They go up to her bedroom, and then they're in the graveyard, and I'm like, let's move on from this too. I just wanted them to move on the whole time.
Is that how you felt about this whole movie?
Not the whole movie, no.
Okay, I thought you liked this movie.
I think it won me over. So it had me at the beginning because I loved the intro. I loved him driving to work and realizing that the gas nozzle was still stuck in his car and then he threw it away. I was loving him coming home and seeing his friends at the funeral and
Wait, him going to work? He works at a he did work when he works, I guess, at a Vietnamese restaurant in LA.
mhm.
And it's so funny because he has to wear like a traditional Vietnamese outfit, which I don't even think it was Vietnamese. It looked
I have
like,
no idea. I can't.
but the people at the table were like, "Yeah, we'll have names off a bunch of drinks and we'll have a basket of bread." And he's like, "We don't have bread." She's like, "Why don't you have bread? This is a restaurant." And he's like, "It's Vietnamese. They don't have bread." And the girl's like, "You're not Vietnamese."
Okay, so I'm supposed to carry around bread with me?
Like, you could totally see some LA snob getting upset about that.
You think so?
Just people with money that are just entitled because
Yeah.
mommy and daddy pay for everything or something. I don't know. That's the vibe that I got.
So yeah, I'm liking all that, and then the beginnings of his relationship with Natalie Portman, I was really not liking. I was like, kind of wanted her to leave.
Well, and it was kind of confusing because you don't know how old she is in the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah,
And then at some point they go to a bar and she has an ID, which we're all assuming is real.
yeah,
And you find out later on that like it probably is real or something like that. But it was just the way that she dressed and the way that she acted. There was no way to really tell how old she was. And at some point you find out he's 25 or 26 in this movie. And so I was just thinking about that for a lot of the movie and being kind of worried about it.
yeah. But then it won me back at a certain point. There's a scene without going into detail where they are all at this guy's house, and this guy is really rich, and they're all swimming, and then they're all hanging out. And this is when the movie started to win me back over.
When Andrew didn't know how to swim.
Just that whole
Oh, and then them sitting in front
sequence.
of the fire.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
whole sequence. I liked that a lot. And then basically everything after that I liked a lot. from the movie. They give a lot of time to things that didn't really like, didn't really connect with, didn't really enjoy. Exhibit A, that whole first meeting her in her house sequence took way too long. And then there's a conversation later between Andrew and another character that's very important and very pivotal for him in his life with a certain person that gets like 2 minutes of play. And like looking back, I think I understand that Natalie Portman's character is playing a large role in helping him change and come out of his shell and figure out his life. So I understand why you want to give their relationship a lot of screen time, but this other conversation needed more focus. And I was liking it. I was liking what was there, but I definitely wanted more, you know?
Yeah.
Like it ended way too abruptly for me.
There's this part in the movie where Andrew and his friend and Sam, Natalie Portman's character, go to this hotel and they meet this guy who runs a peeping Tom operation
It's so weird.
in the crawl space between hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Do you think stuff like that actually happens?
No way.
There's no way, but like, do you?
Like this whole thing is just weird. There's just weird things everywhere. Like one of his friends got rich for inventing soundless Velcro. Just like what? Okay. And then he's getting there's just a lot of things that are weird in this movie, just different. They're off, they're quirky. This movie is really going for quirky.
And I don't love it sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
I will say, Andrew, what's his real name?
Zach Braff.
Zach Braff. His mouth is kind of annoying sometimes in this movie.
More annoying than the guy's mouth in Severance.
The main character?
Yeah.
In some ways, yes, but not fully. That guy's. It's his lips, it's not just his mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just kind of distracting at times.
More annoying than the mouth of the food critic from Ratatouille. He's always like, and it's extremely pointy.
Brandon's sticking out his lips as far as they can go right now.
Very pointily.
Yeah.
Who has the most annoying mouth on planet Earth? Let us know in the comments below.
And we'll compare it next week.
Yeah,
So
far the front runners are Zach Braff, the food critic from Ratatouille, and Adam Scott. Is that his name? I think it's Adam Scott from Severance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, those are the front runners right now. And you're not allowed to say birds because they all have very pointy mouths. Has to be human. Those are the rules. Okay, anything else before we jump into spoilers? Rate it in spoilers. Overall, overall I'd say I like this movie and I would recommend it given okay, so there's a little bit of parents guide we got to talk about. There are sweary naughty words in this movie. Not a ton, but you know, they're present for sure. There's a little bit of drug use and there are scenes of nudiness, which is what Micah was alluding to, the peeping tom scene
In the
so
hotel.
so strange.
It didn't. Yeah, that could have been taken out.
It did not need to be in there. No, it definitely didn't need to be in there. So, but again, like this is a quirky movie, so they're chucking shit in there to be different.
Yeah, and on that, I would have preferred it not to be there.
Yeah, it really served no purpose apart from like to shock you and to maybe make you laugh a little bit at the situation. I didn't really find it that funny.
I didn't either.
There are like in the movie that we'll talk about next, Memoir of a Snail, they do that same sort of thing with nudity, and it works a lot better in Memoir of a Snail, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like it's handled a lot more tastefully.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where we come down on that piece. But overall, I think it's positive, and I would recommend it. You know, given you're okay with those things that we just mentioned in the Parents Guide.
Well, and not as a Valentine's movie.
It's I wouldn't watch this for Valentine's Day.
No.
No.
Okay, what would you rate it?
So I'm gonna give this I'll give it a 6.5. I think it's decent. I think there are scenes that I really enjoyed, but and I will say also I think it is a grower. I think it's something I might like more if I watched again and I was ready for those parts that bored me. But as of right now, I'm giving it a 6.5 Simon and Garfunkels out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely don't think that this is a rom com. I would say there is romance and there is comedy, but I would not classify this as that. And there were definitely things that I didn't like, but there were things that I did like.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think I'm going to watch this again? Well, only if Braden's watching it and I'm there.
Does she think she's going to ask herself another rhetorical question? Yes.
um, if I had to rate this,
If it's you reading the signs.
right? Do you like that I've been saying that?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Let us know what that reference is. By the way, this will be a running thing. We would love you to tell us.
if you catch any movie references,
Yes, and let us know what that reference was that I just said.
I'm gonna rate this a 6 old boats out of 10.
Incidentally, spoiler time. Incidentally, that was my favorite scene in the movie.
That whole thing in the boat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, mostly after when it started raining. So they end up in this quarry, and they're there because Andrew is about to leave and his friend wanted to get him a gift, and so they kind of go on this big ass scavenger hunt for the entire day. They end up in this quarry.
It's kind of like that thing where people start out with a paperclip and they keep trading up.
That's how it feels.
That's how it feels.
But it's not that.
No, but that is how it feels.
They have a lot of stops to make.
Yeah.
And they end up in this quarry. He gives the gift to Andrew, and as they're leaving the quarry, it starts to just dump rain. And Andrew at this point has started to become more liberated. A big thing throughout his life is his dad is his psychiatrist, and his dad has basically kept him medicated his entire life, so he hasn't really been able to experience emotions, experience life.
Because he's been numb.
Yeah, he's been very numb.
He's been on pretty major antidepressants his whole life.
And there's a reason for it, and maybe Micah will talk about that as part of what she's gonna say. But he has started to not take the medicine. He's met Natalie Portman's character, and he's starting to feel things, and he's experiencing life finally. And as it's pouring rain, he is just high on life, and he jumps up on this little crane thing, this
abandoned
derelict
equipment
thing, and he just starts yelling into the quarry, into the ravine. And then his friends get up next to him and they start yelling, and it's playing a Simon and Garfunkel song. That's why I rated it Simon and Garfunkel's. And I'm a really big fan of their music and that song, and just like the whole construction of the scene, it raining and that being a thing that normally you would just want to get out of and sprint away from, but because he's starting to wake up to life, he's now experiencing what it feels like to be caught in the rain and to be excited. And it was just a really cool scene. I liked it with the music and everything, so I really enjoyed that scene.
That scene made me think of like a Lemon Twigs music video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It seemed like something they would put in there.
Sounds like Micah did not have the same experience with that scene as I did.
No. I was wondering, so Andrew's friend Mark, who's his friend from high school and all of that, works as a gravedigger at the cemetery, and I think he's a grave robber. He is a grave robber, and I was wondering if the gift that he tracked down he stole, or if someone else stole
I
it.
was confused about that. Why didn't they have that? Why didn't they set it aside if it was his mom's favorite piece of jewelry?
So that she could be buried in it. She was buried in it.
Oh, okay. I did not see that.
Yeah.
So why was Andrew okay with taking it?
It was already taken from her grave.
Did he sell it?
That's what I was confused about. If Mark, his friend, grave robbed Andrew's mom's grave, or if someone else robbed her grave.
But
and he just knew about it and tracked it down.
Yeah, because it was the guy on the boat that ended up getting it.
Yeah, so
somehow.
I was wondering if he was just like someone that has stuff that a middleman or
Uh,
something.
okay.
I was just wondering about that, and it sounds like you did not
I didn't
wonder
even.
about that.
Well, because like at a certain point with these really weird, quirky movies, they can do things, and you just start to accept it at a certain point because everybody else has been acting strange. So like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I was also wondering if you thought that the mom killed herself.
I was thinking that
Because at the beginning of the movie, you find out she died in the bath. And I was
she
like,
drowned
right, she drowned in the bath. And I was like, who drowns in the bath as an
because
adult?
she's
But you
paraplegic.
don't know that at the beginning.
Yeah,
And so I was like, oh, so did she kill herself? And then later on, you find out she's a quadriplegic or a paraplegic. I can't remember
I
which
think
one.
just because something happened when Andrew was a kid, he got
It was a
upset
freak
and
accident.
he pushed her, and there was like a cabinet open, and
She hit her head on the cabinet and she was paralyzed.
from the waist down though, so
Oh,
like
okay.
she had the use of her arms, which and then when Andrew is in the bathroom looking at the bathtub, like it's not deep enough to drown you where you can't use your arms to pull yourself back out,
Yeah.
like so. And I think he mentions when he's talking to his dad, he like makes some comment about mom not wanting to be here anymore or something like that. So like, I think it's sort of left open to interpretation, maybe, or maybe it's even implied that she committed suicide. But yeah, I that's what I was thinking by the end, that she may have committed suicide. But like that segues into the other scene that I really liked, but also that I was frustrated with, and it's him talking with his dad because there's tension there.
Because he's been avoiding talking to his dad this whole trip. Because it's obvious
They don't talk.
they have unresolved issues
He hasn't been home
in 9 years.
since his mom died. Well, since his mom was paralyzed, and
No, since he was 16.
oh, you're right.
Because at some point when he was a teenager, they just sent him off to boarding school.
Right. And so they have this unresolved stuff, but it just happens, like the resolution happens way too quickly. It's like, and Andrew he suddenly has all the wisdom he needs, and he has a monologue, and it's a pretty good monologue, but the dad never says anything back to him really. And then they end the conversation after the monologue, and he just leaves.
That's how it is sometimes, though.
I know. And like Andrew is going to stay in New Jersey by the end of this movie, so they will work on it continually. They'll have more conversations and more tete-a-tetes. It wasn't as satisfying as I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Um,
But sometimes that's how it is.
yeah,
Sometimes, and it sounds like he just needed to say it in some ways.
yeah,
I don't know. I will say that was such a dad moment. He goes into his dad's room and his dad is watching TV and he has the paper out, but he's fallen asleep. And Andrew sits on his bed. It's like, hey, dad. And the dad is like, oh, I wasn't asleep. Like, that's such a dad thing. To
yeah.
be fully asleep and snoring. You're like, I was just resting my eyes. I wasn't asleep.
That's so funny.
All right. You feel good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're done. Okay, next one, Memoir of a Snail. This is the only movie that we were missing from,
Animated Best Picture nominations.
yes, for this year, and we have watched it. And this is also a quirky movie.
I would say this is way more quirky.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's actually way better too.
Hmm.
Apparently, Micah doesn't think so. But what's this one about, Micah?
Okay, so this movie is about a set of twins, Gracie and what's the brother's name?
Gilbert.
Gilbert. And they're raised by a dad who is a paraplegic.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, he dies, and they go into the foster system, and they get separated. And they live in Australia. And they get separated, and they're on opposite ends of Australia.
Yeah.
One of them lives in Perth, and one of them, or near Perth, and the other one lives in Canberra, is how they say it. But it's spelled Canberra.
Mm-hmm.
And they're writing letters to each other, but the movie is just about their experience with their respective foster families and how the experiences are so incredibly different.
Mm-hmm.
And they still love each other. They're siblings and they're trying to stay connected and they want to see each other, but neither of them can afford it.
Well, it's really Gracie's story more than it is Gilbert's
That's
story
fair.
because she is telling her life to a snail. And her whole life she's loved snails, been fascinated by them, and due to various trauma and issues that she's had, she's become a hoarder of all things snail, and she has a little snail hat that she wears. So she considers herself a snail, in quotes. So that I think that's why it's called Memoir of a Snail.
Hmm.
But yeah, she's telling this story to the snail. So it's basically narrated the whole way through.
I guess that's fair. And then when we hear about Gilbert, it's Gilbert writing letters
Right.
to Gracie, and we get a look into Gilbert's life.
Yeah. So this is it's called a drama tragicomedy if you look it up on Google. And that's fair.
I think that's honestly like a kind of a perfect description.
Yeah, I think it leans a little heavier into tragedy than anything else. But
Like if I had to put them in order of
yeah,
it would be tragedy, drama, comedy.
but it is so unabashedly strange
Yeah.
that like the funny parts really work.
Yeah.
I thought.
I think we need to give the parents guide at the beginning of this
Yeah,
so that you kind of have an idea. So this
it's stop
is
motion.
stop motion clay, right?
Yeah, but it is adult.
This is rated R.
Yeah.
I don't even think there's any language, is there?
There's a little bit, not that much.
Not that much. It's all for nudity and
Some violence,
okay, some violence, but also like sexual,
undertones,
yeah,
themes. Yeah,
but huge nudity of these
because
claymation
yeah.
people.
So Gracie goes and lives with foster parents who are swingers
And also
and become nudists.
become nudists.
And yeah, so there's that. And it like this is why we alluded to it when we were talking about Garden State, because they do that scene in Garden State where people are looking through the cracks of hotel rooms and at like people meeting up with hookers and stuff, and it's just like, what the hell, like this doesn't fit at all with the rest of the movie. And it's just, but like here
This is how it's set up.
it's
This is
funny. Yeah. it is funny, like,
well, and like these are her foster parents, and they do not hide it at all.
no.
There's this scene where Gracie is talking about how her foster parents have gone on this nudist cruise, and you can see the mom, the foster mom, rollerblading on deck, and she's doing. Just imagine 1 foot down, 1 foot raised up in the air, and she's leaned halfway over doing like a swan type thing, fully nude with her boobs just hanging down, and they have a picture of it hanging in their house.
It's so strange.
So weird.
Yeah. But it's funny though, like, and there's a lot of funny Australian goofy quirky humor.
Yeah.
Her brother is a pyromaniac, and it's fun to watch him set things on fire.
Yeah.
And there's a part where so she meets this old woman named Pinky, and
Just Pinky.
and Pinky sort of becomes her
Best friend.
her real mom / best friend.
Yeah.
And they call her Pinky because she lost a pinky, and then it cuts. She's like, and Pinky lost her pinky whilst dancing in Barcelona, and then it like cuts back to Pinky like tap dancing on a
bar,
and there's fun music going on, and then she lifts her hand up too high, and then the fan just cuts her finger right off.
And then it's like kind of graphic.
And then it cuts back, and you're like, oh. Okay. So
my goodness.
There's a lot of stuff like that where you're just like, whoa, that's funny. But I thought it was very effective. Like it got me in the feels. Did it get you in the feels? No.
Okay, this is while we were watching this movie, I was like, I don't really like this that much. And now that we're talking about it, I definitely liked it more than I initially thought because it was so crazy in so many ways.
Yeah.
That, yeah, I think it did. But also, it was so weird that, like, it's, I don't know, it was a weird movie for me.
Um, she just like it's tragedy after tragedy after tragedy for this poor Gracie
Yeah.
and for her brother, and you're just like, geez, that's so rough.
Yeah, for these little kids to be, yeah, have to do all of this stuff. I will say, the family that Gilbert goes and lives with, crazy. He goes and lives
My
with
word.
this family that has four boys, I think, and the dad is a pastor, and the mom is just, the pastor's wife, I guess. And it's very weird, and it seems like their family is the only one that's a part of this church that the dad has
Yeah.
formed, and they'll show scenes of them like praying, and it's just gibberish.
Oh yeah.
The baby Jesus.
Praise the Lord.
And that's exactly what it is. And then it'll be like a scene of them all at dinner and they're all supposed to pray. And everybody's like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Praise be. Oh, blah, 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 blah.
It's so
The
strange.
Virgin Mary.
Like and every character in this movie looks so strange and
Yeah.
off-putting, and they all have like weird sunken eyes, and
Yeah.
they're all like, even there was this little moment at the beginning where I was like, did you see that dog, Micah? And then we like went back and there's this little dog that's just hanging out by the side
Of a
of a
building.
building in one scene, and it's just has bulging
It's like a
eyes,
pug with huge eyes and its tongue just. Look.
and you're just like, what the hell? Like, there's so many, and this is true of any stop motion movie that's done with any amount of love and care, but there's so much detail
Yeah.
to be extracted from the viewing, and I
Yeah.
really like that. I love stop motion movies because they feel so crafted, right?
Yeah, that's fair. And like normally I hate opening credits. Like I just want to skip through it. There was a lot to see in the open credits
Because
of
it's all
this.
of the stuff she's hoarding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we don't know that at the time.
right. Yeah, but I thought that this movie was very effective when it wanted to make you feel sad, it did.
Yeah.
When it wanted to make you feel,
Uncomfortable, it
oh
definitely
yeah,
did.
when it wanted to make you feel satisfied and like, there was a feeling of catharsis at a certain scene that I definitely got. And when it wanted to make me laugh, it made me laugh. And I thought it did a great job and has some poignant stuff to say. I'll continue in repeating this, but rough year for religion in the movies, huh? Because this Christian family is not portrayed in a good light at all. They
No.
they are pieces of shit.
Yeah. Like
Bad people.
just in the church aspect of this, okay, that foster family has a farm and they make all the kids work at the farm.
It's an orchard, just an apple
Oh, okay.
orchard. Yeah.
And they get paid, let's just say 20 cents or something
Yeah.
every week or however often.
And then
And then when it comes to church on Sunday, the dad slash pastor walks around with tithes, and Gilbert is guilted
put
and
his money back.
right,
Yeah.
he has to give it right back to the family, and then the dad goes and buys alcohol with it.
Well, and that's the least of
Right.
the evil things that they do, and
But just in the church aspect of that,
yeah,
right? Oh, so stupid. So how is he ever supposed to save money?
yeah. So I
When
could
he's
I
basically a slave.
I could see people complaining about that aspect, like, but it is what it is. I don't know. This is a listen. There are fundamentalist Christians like that out there, just very very hypocritical, very uncaring, very, there's that saying, there's no hate like Christian love. That's these people. And there's people out there that are, most Christians not like this at all, but there are
Yeah.
this does exist and can exist. So if you don't like it, whatever, it does exist. You have to reconcile with that. It definitely does exist, and this is just an example of that, I guess. The story that the people wanted to tell. Um, Anything else that you want to talk about before spoilers? If you want to talk about spoilers,
I know that I was giving this movie kind of some hate, but I do think it was pretty funny. Or
yeah,
it was worth watching.
I think it's definitely worth watching
Yeah.
as long as you're okay watching an adult. It is a little bit weird, an adult animation.
Yeah.
It feels a little, I don't know, dirty. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Feels a little dirty to watch it, but like it's really no worse than any other rated R movie that you may or may not have seen during your life. It's just the fact that it's stop motion and so strange to look at
I think
maybe
it's
makes it feel
the
a little more enhanced.
yeah, and like the monochromatic color scheme. It's a lot of
It's not
gray.
really. It's
It's a
not
lot
really.
of gray and black.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty colorful.
It had a dark feel to it.
Hmm.
Not like a icky, but like it was just kind of like a like gray
Yeah.
scaled movie. Not fully,
I will
but
say the movie does not feel dark as such. Like there are tragic things that happen, but on the whole, I think it feels more whimsical than it does like dark and depressing.
and the whole time I was thinking, this is such a quirky movie.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking the whole time. In a totally
yeah,
different way than Garden State.
yeah. In my opinion, a much better way.
Yeah.
I like this a lot more than I liked Garden State. Are you ready to rate it? Okay, I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Oh.
I thought it was really strong, and I'm gonna give it an 8.5. Take Me Home Country Roads out of
Oh
10.
my gosh. Okay. I think I'm gonna rate this an 8. Uh yeah, an 8. I think I'm gonna rate this an 8. In case you're wondering, I'm gonna rate this an 8. I'm gonna rate this an 8 Sylvia's
Okay.
out of 10. Okay, spoilers.
What to say?
Okay, I want to talk about her fiance
Oh
first.
man.
Okay, so Gracie meets this guy who apparently moved in next door or across the street, and they start dating. And she writes Gilbert, after a month, we're engaged, which is so weird
Hmm.
and just scary. And why didn't Pinky say anything to her about it? But also, their relationship, the only thing that they ever eat are like hot dogs and milkshakes.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Tell them what you find out.
So you find out, well, they do lay hints for you from the beginning because
Yeah.
he has this like calendar and it's like big women or something.
Oh, I didn't see that
You
one.
didn't see that?
No.
That's in his house. He
Okay.
has a big women calendar,
Yikes.
and so it turns out he's fattening her up
He has a fat
because
fetish,
that's
basically.
what he's attracted to. Yeah, and he like there is a scene where he's taking pictures of her,
Like in her
lewd
undies or
pictures.
something. Yeah.
And this is early on in their relationship, and it's a little strange, right? It's just like
Never her face. It's always just. And she's a little bit bigger.
it's not framed in a way that makes you think that everything is all right.
Yeah, it's definitely weird.
It's like, okay, this is a little weird, and then there's the whole, if you caught the calendar, then that's in the back of your mind, and the fact that he's always bringing her sausages and
Milkshakes.
milkshakes, and you're like, something's odd.
Yeah.
And then she finds this scrapbook that he's been creating, and breaks up with him, kicks him out. Yeah, pretty gross.
Yeah, that was definitely icky.
Yeah,
That made me feel icky.
and it's so sad too because she like her mom dies in childbirth, and then they have a great relationship with their paraplegic dad and each other. It's hard, but like they all love each other, and then their dad dies, and then they get separated, and then she deals with bullies and not having her brother there to help her with the bullies, and she just really wants a boyfriend, but like Everybody thinks she's ugly. Everybody thinks she sucks. And then she finally gets a boyfriend, but then it turns out he's a pervert. And then she's really sad. And
Yeah, and
it's just
then
rough.
and then you find out Gilbert dies.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it turns out Gilbert's gay. And he,
For one of his foster brothers.
yeah, so they get caught smooching behind the barn. And of course, the mom decides electroshock therapy. By the way, I found out this is set in the 1970s, so 100% spot on
Okay.
with electroshock therapy. Like,
Even in Australia?
I
Well, I
mean,
guess
I don't know. I don't know specifically Australia, but 100% here
Yeah.
that was a thing. So they're doing electroshock therapy, and Gilbert gets really pissed off and breaks out of the electroshock, whatever,
And goes over to the chapel.
and he attacks the mom, and then he ends up setting the chapel on fire, and then they're like, Gilbert, what are you doing? You're burning our chapel.
You're going crazy. The bitch locks him in there
And then doesn't let him out, and then
as the building is burning.
and then writes a letter to Gracie and claims that he chose to stay in there as penance for destroying their church
and being gay.
Right. Just liars and like just awful.
She's horrible.
Yeah. So that, but, and this is maybe the last thing we'll talk about. So it's kind of relentlessly, it's whimsical and very funny, but then Pinky dies, and it's just like, oh my gosh, man! Like every time you think you have something good, Pinky's letter, by the way, was really good.
Yeah, that was
really
perfect.
Liked that.
Yeah.
Potatoes. Yeah.
Sorry, that was,
which is funny. Like that's how the movie starts. Like she's like
on her deathbed,
and you're kind of like giggling when you're watching it at the beginning, but then like the movie she tells her whole thing, circles back to that scene, plays that scene again, and you're like, this is not funny.
No.
And I don't know, this movie does everything it does so well.
Yeah.
Like makes you laugh.
Well, the storytelling was amazing.
It made me laugh at something that made me almost tear up at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is like amazing.
Well, and I thought it was so funny because at the beginning, Pinky is like old.
Ancient.
Old.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's lived a life. Okay. Yeah. And at the beginning of the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, it looks like a wrinkly ball sack. And then at the end of the movie, and like, you know, like Brayden said, we were laughing at the beginning. And then at the end of the movie, she has written this letter to Gracie, and Pinky's like, and I look like a wrinkly testicle. I was like, okay, I'm glad she knows.
But like her letter is so good.
Yeah.
And it's all about like accepting pain and tragedy and moving on, and it's time for you to move on, Gracie.
It's time for you to live a life.
It's time for you to get rid of the snail stuff. Like snails, when they're crawling, they never cross their own trail. They just keep going. So it's time for you to make a snail trail all over the world.
Yeah.
You know? And it's really, really great. And so Gracie decides, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pursue animating, which is what she was always interested in doing since she was a child.
Yeah.
And then she makes her own little feature film, and in the audience is none other than Gilbert. And he came, and it turns out he was able to escape through the back window when the barn was burning, and he crossed the desert like he said he was going to 1,000,000 times and found her. And then they're finally able to go. We're kind of throwing in a lot of shit that we didn't mention earlier, but they were supposed to spread their dad's ashes on a roller coaster because it was like
the movie comes full circle.
Yeah, and the last scene, I think it's the last scene. The last scene is them spreading their dad's ashes on the roller coaster, and it's really good. Yeah, I really liked that ending. And you may say, I don't like that it didn't end happy. I wanted it to be sad. And if you say that, you, first of all, and B, I'm glad that for such like a relentlessly hard, sad life that these two have had, that they get to reunite at the end.
Yeah.
But I think this movie is good. I think it's really good. I think it's very, very strong. And I think that if it wins Best Animated Feature, I will celebrate and be happy. Because I think it's such a freaking strong year for animated films, don't you think?
Because we have Memoir of a Snail.
Yeah.
We have Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
We have Flo.
Yeah.
And we have
Wild Robot.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, these are all really good. And like I saw someone comment. I watched a review on YouTube and it was like, I'm so pissed that Wild Robot is gonna win. Why is Wild Robot gonna win? My brother in Christ, did you watch Wild Robot? It's really freaking good.
Yeah.
It's poignant like this is for different reasons, but like poignant like this
Yeah.
is. Just because it's not relentlessly grim or because it's not stop motion, I don't get it. Like, oh, Inside Out 2, that's the other one.
Oh.
Let's make a ranking for who we hope win.
Okay. If it's me calling the signs,
If
Okay.
if it's you reading the signs,
right? It's Wild Robot first.
that's who you want to win
That's
first.
who I want to win. If this Memoir of a Snail wins, I would also be okay. So I'm
Okay.
putting that second.
Okay.
And then Wallace and Gromit.
Okay.
And then Flo, and then I think Inside Out too.
Okay. I think I would like to see this or Flo win.
Interesting.
That's what I would like to see.
Yeah.
They're so unique, and that's really the reason why.
Yeah.
I would love to see a unique film get rewarded for being so unique, because there's going to be more movies like Wild Robot, and I'm happy for it, but it does definitely have that like potential to become a Pixar situation where there's just a lot of movies made like it. Right now it feels, I'm talking specifically about the art style.
Yeah.
Because right now it's basically just that and the Puss in Boots movie that look the way that they do. But I think they're finding success with them, so
Yeah,
I think
'cause
there's
they
going to be
both did
more.
well.
So, but I still think the Wild Robot's great. I teared up in that movie, and I would be happy if that won too. But I loved Flo, and I really liked this too. So I would prefer one of those more unique ones to win, and then after that I would say Wild Robot third, Wallace and Gromit fourth, Inside Out 2 last.
It was a really good year for animated
Really good.
movies.
Like these are probably my favorite movies that I've seen this year, besides
Scrapper.
Mad Max and Scrapper. And Scrapper didn't come out this year, so like
it didn't?
no, that was like 2 years ago. Of the 2024 movies, like all of these animated movies are some of my favorite ones that I watched.
Yeah.
Like in many ways much more than the ones that have been nominated for Best Picture that I've seen.
Yeah, it was a good year.
Yeah.
If you're someone that hates stop motion claymation, get over yourself.
But don't watch this one. This is not the one for you to start.
Right, watch Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, that's a much unironically gonna be much more palatable for you than Memoir of a Snail. Don't avoid this one.
Yeah.
This is not your beginners landlubber grannies.
No, but Wallace and Gromit.
Movie. Yeah, watch Wallace and Gromit. Very funny, very fun.
Yeah.
Delightful, even charming.
Love it.
Feathers McGraw.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Okay, coming up, I'm thinking Sing Sing.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. We might be almost done with Severance. I feel like we've been
We're on
saying
episode
this.
8.
I know. So maybe we could finish it. We'll see.
Should I talk about Landman?
Oh, that's another thing. Braden has been putting out weekly.
Basically, yeah.
Video essays on YouTube. So go and check those out on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, the next one will be God of War 2018. Camden. I'm talking about it in video essay format. So that'll be next. And then I have finished Landman.
That video is going to be long.
Yeah, that
might be a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's gonna take a while. I'm doing a big video on it. Gonna go through every single episode. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's it. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.